What's up, everybody? Welcome to my Madden 24 Franchise Beginner's Guide. Somebody left me a comment the other day, so I wanted to do this video for the players and for the people out there that are watching this video, or maybe you're just searching for tips and how to do things in the game and you just stumbled on this. If you did, hello, welcome. I hope you like what I do and check me out more in the different videos that I do. But this video, I am going to be doing a very simple franchise beginner's guide. And honestly, it is going to be as basic as possible. I am just going to start a franchise. I'm going to explain what every menu does, what every area does. I'm going to take you through a season. We're going to do the off season. And it's just meant for the players and the people that are maybe brand new to the game, or maybe you've played the game, but you never actually delved into a franchise. And when you did, you're like, I don't know what any of this stuff does. I don't even know how to work it. That's what I'm hoping this video will help you with. So for those who are veterans of the game, for those who are confident enough in your abilities to manage a franchise and handle it and know what's going on, then this video probably isn't for you. But for those who are just starting out, maybe you've never played Madden before, maybe you aren't familiar with football or Madden in general, and you want to be, this will help you get a franchise started, and this will at least give you a starting point in your franchise and give you a little bit more confidence when you're looking at the different stuff that you have to choose from. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And we're going to start right from square one. And I'm going to show you guys how to even create a franchise. So first, of course, you click on franchise. And if you have stuff saved, it's going to show you all that stuff. We're going to go down here, go to create new league. This first page determines how your franchise is going to be saved. So these top two here for online means that you're not going to have a save point. You cannot undo what you do, but you're also going to be online. It won't be saved on your system, but you also don't have to worry about saving. So it auto saves. And this is also where you can use the real life roster. So if you go into real life roster, when I forget, Madden gave up on this, but every few weeks, usually I think it's like 3 times a year, they will upgrade this so that way you can start a franchise from the week that it's stated here and have the accurate statistics from the real NFL. This used to be a thing they did every week, and they just stopped doing it last year. I'm not sure why, but they did. So this might get updated again in like week 8, maybe week 12, end of the season, that sort of thing, but they won't update it every week anymore for whatever reason it is. Your main roster is not going to be in here. It's going to be just the actual roster they have set for this particular starting point in the season. Instead of the real life roster, you can also go use active roster. And what this is the latest Madden 24 roster that they update every week. It'll start importing the roster like this. And then once it gets done with that, it is going to bring you to the team selection and you're just going to choose your team from there. Now, if you decide not to go online and you want to go offline, this is something I would consider for somebody who maybe isn't 100% sure how things work yet and they want to be able to sort of backtrack. You know, if they make a trade on accident or they do something weird or they make a re-signing that they don't like and then they realize it, you can use the offline version. And what I did when I was doing this was I would save a backup and I would not update it all the time, right? I would maybe update it, like if I knew in week 4, okay, I'm happy with everything I've done so far, I don't care, I'll save my backup there, but then I'll leave it for a while until I'm okay again to do it. So that way, if you want to backtrack, you can do that. Or if you start it up and you're like, oh, I did something wrong, you can just back out, reload up the regular save, not the auto save, and you'll be right back where you started before you made the mistake. Also, this won't be affected by server issues. Now, of course, if you can't even get into EA Network sometimes, that might affect you a little bit, but if it's just the servers having issues, you'll still be able to play your franchise. And this one has the same active roster. It'll import the current roster that Madden 24 has, or you can have it preset to the preseason roster, which is very base. There's no updates on the players. The ratings are wrong. I highly recommend not using this roster at all because this is the one that's not going to have anything updated. So if you are following a team and a player or two sort of go off and they have a huge rating increase, you know, they go to a 68 to like a 75 and you're excited to use them and build with them. If you use the preseason roster, it's going to be the base roster when the game came out essentially. So the players that have been playing well aren't going to have the ratings they should have. The players that have been playing bad are still going to be good if they regress. So stay away from this roster unless you really don't care, then by all means. Otherwise, always use active roster. Now, also the other portion of this is if you're online, for the most part, you can advance and move through things quicker online. than when you can offline. Don't ask me why, but for some reason, if you're simming, like say you sim a whole season, it's going to take you longer to do it offline than it will online. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Other than that, it's completely up to you. But again, if you're newer, I would suggest going offline just because then you don't have to worry about saving something that you did on accident. So now you've made your decision on if you're going to go offline or online, and you are on this screen here. This is simply just choosing the team you want to use. I, of course, am a Vikings fan. If you didn't know that, now you do. So I'm always going to use them for any example. So we're going to click here, and then it brings you to this screen. Now, this top button here, don't click it too fast, okay? Some people just click right through. This means that you're going to start with whatever they have, and there's some things that you want to know before you get there. So the first here, starting point. If you click on starting point, you can choose to start at the preseason, the regular season, or you can start with a fantasy draft. Now, the fantasy draft means that every single player in the NFL is going to be put into a big draft pool, and then you're going to get to choose your players from that pool. So no team is going to have the same players. So obviously, if you're doing this for a particular team and a particular set of players, you don't want to choose a fantasy draft. But if you want to mix things up a little bit, sometimes that can be fun, seeing what kind of team you can build and how you do against a completely randomized league where the teams are literally just the logos and the colors. There's no players to fall back on. I usually start in preseason if I'm starting brand new because I want to make sure I do like training camp and all that fun stuff. So change role. So you can choose what role you want to have. You can be just a player, which is like a dumbed down version of superstar mode. I don't recommend it. An owner, so you can be the owner of a team, or of course, it's always going to default you to be the coach. And the reason I would always choose coaching is because I have a feeling that you get more scenarios, which I'll explain later, as a coach than you do as an owner. And really all this does is makes it more difficult because you have to manage your funds, and you also have to, upkeep the stadium and things like that. But so I would recommend using coach, but play around with it. If you want to be the owner and hire your own coaches throughout and change coaches up, that's another option too. And then also, if you want to create a custom coach to start with, you can do that here. If you click here, it's going to ask you for a staff builder or a team builder. So the team builder is going to give you secret stuff. What that means is the backstory, you're going to get the first talent in the head coach player growth talent tree. I'll explain that as well later. That just is essentially you earn extra XP towards your players. And if you want the staff builder, it's going to give you the first talent in the head coach staff modifications talent tree, which means discounts on your staff upgrades and things of that nature. Again, I'll get to that once we get into the franchise, but for now, just keep that in mind. If you're going to go this route and make your own coach, I always go for the team builder because I feel like player development is the most important. But you can also get some good discounts if you get the discounts from the coach upgrade, and I will show you that again in a little bit. And then down here is probably the most important part, league settings. If you click into league settings, you're going to see all of this stuff laid out here. Private, now you're not going to see the private and all the CB Gaming 7_11 and the random password on here. That is just if you're doing online. If you go offline, it's probably just going to start you right here at skill level, because obviously you can't have more than one user in the league. It's really just gameplay settings. And that is another perk of going online, is you can invite other people to join this if you want. If you want your friends to all play a franchise with you, you can just send them an invite, they can pick a team, and then you guys can all play against each other. So there's another boost that I forgot to mention about the online franchise setting. Of course, you can play with other people. Sorry, I didn't say that before, but it's just so second nature to me that sometimes I forget that somebody might not know that. So wanted to make sure I get that in there. And now down to the settings. Now, skill level, pretty simple and very easy to explain. How good are you at the game? If you're not very good at the game at all, this is like your first time playing Madden, you're probably going to want to go with rookie or pro, because those are the easier ones to play with. You don't get as frustrated. The CPU can't destroy you with everything. You get to all pro, that is a good happy medium. I think a lot of the casual gamers, maybe the guys who aren't hardcore or playing online all the time with people, they'll probably play an all pro. And then all Madden, of course, that is the highest level of difficulty. If you're not very good at Madden yet, if you're just starting out, you don't really know what's going on yet, make sure you choose rookie or pro. I think you can get away with pro. It'll probably be more challenging for you to go pro, but if you want to go straight rookie for the first couple of games just to get your feet wet, completely acceptable. Now the game style. So the game style is arcade, simulation, and competitive. Now this is going to determine how the players play. And it shows you here on the right side, which it tells you a lot about the settings you're choosing. Arcade, frequent, exciting highlight reel plays, limited penalties, no injuries, no fatigue, just high scoring gameplay. So this is for the people that just want to just bomb it deep, play games 55 to 56, and they don't want the intricacies of American football. If you want a good just simulation, you're just more about trying to have things more realistic, you don't care as much about it being high scoring, simulation is going to be the way for you to go. It's an authentic NFL style that plays true to player and team ratings. Now, this is up for debate on a lot of people, but especially if you're newer to this game and this video is helping you, simulation is probably going to be your best bet. Competitive, it's really where all of the players that play hardcore, they're playing online, that's the mode that they're probably going to go with. And there's, you can see here, there's a lot of things that it changes. So like online ranked and tournament, this is the default. Stick skills matter more than just CPU, so you have an advantage by using the stick skills and usering a player rather than letting the CPU handle the player. There's no injuries, the fatigue doesn't hit as hard. It's just high level, high impact gaming, and it's going to be the hardest way for you to play the game. I choose simulation. I like simulation. I'm not sweaty enough or hardcore enough in this game to be that good. I was probably 10, 12 years ago, but I didn't keep up with it. I'm more of a laid back gamer. If you check out my franchise series, which I'll go ahead and put up above here for you guys to check out the playlist if you want to. I just like watching the game. I actually more like the GM side. So I don't know all the fancy tricks to destroy people on head-to-head play. So quarter length, very simple. How many minutes do you want each quarter to take? I highly recommend not going up to 15. This will take forever, okay? This game is not designed for the CPU system to run 15-minute quarters. Your stats will be inflated. The games will take an hour and a half. You can use the accelerated clock if you want to and run this down. So try and find a good balance between these three settings here. I usually roll with like 12 minutes, so that way I have a longer game and I get more close to realistic stats. And then here with the accelerated clock and minimum play clock time. So as you know, if you don't know, there's a play clock in football. It's 40 seconds from the end of the play to when the ball has to be snapped to keep the pace of the game going. You can set this to automatically run down that play clock. And if the clock is running, run the time down to a certain amount of time. And this is how you can sort of counteract. If you want to have 15-minute quarters, you might be able to run this down to 12 seconds, 11 seconds, things like that. And it'll automatically run that clock down to make sure you're not playing as long and also keep the play count down to a minimum. The accelerated clock is the switch for that. You can have it on or you can turn it off. If you have it off, there will be no accelerated clock. The clock will tick at normal speed. So if you want the most authentic experience, like what you see on TV, it's gonna be 15 minutes with no accelerated clock. But I'm telling you right now, Madden just is not built for it. So try to use the accelerated clock. I have found most success running 15-second with a 12-minute quarter, but it's to each their own. You're gonna have to mess around with it yourself and figure out what you wanna do. Now, this is the offensive and defensive play call cooldown and limit. So what this means, and this is more if you're playing against other people, there's been a big issue with people repeating plays that everybody knows just goes against what the computer is capable of defending or stopping. Plays that blitz so good that it's impossible to stop, or plays that force the safety to glitch out and it's an easy touchdown. You can limit how many times a player can call a play, or even a CPU team if you want to, by moving this up and down. Now, I like playing with this because I think it gives better control of the playbook and opens up the playbook a little bit more for you to use different types of plays. But this, again, is a personal preference. So you have it on both sides of the ball. Defense, try and keep it a little bit higher, though. So, like, on offense, you can get away with running, like, a 2-play cooldown, you know, only calling one play 3 or 4 times because that's realistic. But on defense, because it's, you know, you don't have as many variety of plays, you want to try and keep it higher because you are going to run into the situation where you're going to need to run the same play twice at times. So keep that in mind if you decide to go this route. If you don't want to use it at all, it's not something you're going to need in order to have fun. This is more so once you get maybe a little bit more advanced in the game and you really want to try and expand your horizons a little bit. Dynamic momentum and home field advantage. I hate this thing. If you've watched Madden and you see that little bar on the top that moves depending on how the team is doing, that's the momentum meter. I hate it. I think it does bad things for the game. I always turn it off, but this is your choice. If you want to have it on, you can. If you want to have it off, you can. If you have it on, you're going to have like 2 perks for each side, depending on how much momentum your team has. It'll make your player faster, or make your line block better, or make the opposing team's kicker suck, or, you know, weird things like that, which I just don't think are a part of football, which is why I always leave it off. And then you get to team settings. Now, this is how much stuff you want to handle. And what I mean by handle is all the stuff that comes with a franchise. So your training, your trades and free agency, your bidding on free agents, your injury management, preseason cut days, contract negotiations, scouting college players, league advancement, practice reps, depth chart ordering, all of this stuff. I always recommend you have all of this set to manual at all times, because if you don't, the CPU does weird things. You know, even if you don't want to do the trades and free agency, you want the team to do that, I'm telling you right now, it's not going to do the things you want it to do. You're better off just keeping everything on manual and doing it all yourself. And then coming down here, auto progress players. If you have this turned on and your player earns enough XP to gain an upgrade point, which again, I'll explain later, it's going to automatically do it, and you won't get to decide where the upgrade goes. So I highly recommend not having this on at all. Same with talents. This is for the franchise talent skill tree. And again, this is what we talked about before with choosing your coach. We'll get to that in a few minutes here. But this is another one I would just have off as well, because you're going to have to choose sides of the talent tree. You can't unlock every single perk. So it's important to pick the ones you want for your team. So make sure this is off. Tutorial pop-ups, I turn these off, but for those of you who might be finding this video helpful, it might be good for you to have these on to just give you little reminders and to help you out with things as you're going through the process of running your franchise. For the team settings, ball hawk, heat seeker, switch assist, and controlled player art. What this means is, for ball hawk, that means that if you are controlling a cornerback or a safety, it will assist you in playing coverage, and it won't make you the full controller of it, which can help if you're just learning how to sort of use this this game and you're not sure how to maneuver the sticks well enough yet. Of course, once you get better, I would recommend turning it off, or you can keep it on. I mean, again, it's personal preference. Heat seeker, this is for when you're trying to tackle somebody, when you're running full speed with a linebacker or anybody on defense. This will help you try and get in the right vicinity of the player. So if you're trying to dive tackle them, it's not going to be affected as much if you accidentally don't take the exact right angle. It's going to sort of assist you in that front. Switch assist. When you're switching players, this will allow you to switch to the best defender for the current situation. So if you have it turned off, the game automatically defaults to the next player in that art, and it can sometimes be the wrong player, right? If you have 2 linebackers that you're trying to use to tackle a player, you might change player and it's going to go to the wrong one, and you're already pre-moving the stick the wrong way now. So if you keep switch assist on, it can help you choose the best defender for the easiest path to make a tackle, or to, you know, swat down a ball or intercept a pass. The controlled player art is for if you decide to play as a particular player, it can give you the look of what it would look like if you are playing in the superstar mode. So it just makes things, think of it almost like going from desktop view on a phone to mobile. You know, it's mobile friendly. You know, it just sort of changes how some things look for you to make sure that it's best for you controlling just a player. Now, chances are you're probably not going to use this much, so it really doesn't matter what the settings are. And for all of these, it's completely up to you. I always just keep individual on, and then you're going to change them in your main settings menu. But you can turn them on if you'd like, turn them off, or keep individual. So it's completely up to you if you want to use these. Commissioner settings. Now, you will have some of these even if you're playing offline, because these are still things you have to decide. Do you want to have trade deadline on? Now, we all know week 9 is the trade deadline. And if you want to have it on, you can. If you want to be able to trade at any point during the season, just turn this off. You can also disable trading altogether, or you can have it only humans, right? So if you have it enable all, that means CPU teams can trade, and of course, human players can trade. If you have it disabled, nobody can trade. And if you have enabled human, only humans can make trades. So if this is just you and nobody else in there, you would be the only one that can make trades. And if you had a few friends in there, you and your friends would be the only ones that can make trades with any team. You can also set how difficult it is to make trades. The reason for this is because Madden has had a very hard time understanding how trade value works, and it's never really been able to replicate it well in the video game world. So if you want it to be a little bit more difficult for you to trade, you can go to hard or very hard. And if you want it to be super easy to trade for players, you can go it down to easy or very easy. Now, if you put it down to very easy, I'm not sure how easy it makes it, but I would imagine that you could get any player you want for not a very high price, and it doesn't make any player untouchable. So use that with caution. If you're just getting started, I would just keep it at normal until you get a little bit better footing of how this stuff works and what you can expect from the CPU. Salary cap. The salary cap is how you decide how much money you can spend on your players and how much you have year to year. Now, if you want to just go crazy and have the best team ever and not have to face any repercussions for it, go ahead and turn this off. Just know that if you turn this off, you can never turn it back on. And if there was somehow a way to turn it back on, everybody would have this crazy cap number thing, and it would just glitch out. Just leave it on, or if you're gonna have it off, just do it knowing that you can never turn it back on. Free agent motivation impact. Now, all players have a motivation area that tells you what they're motivated by. Some are money, some are location, some are what kind of weather you have, if you're a good team, if you have a franchise quarterback. This will change how much that motivation area impacts their decision to either sign with you or re-sign with you. Again, I would keep this at normal, or you can just turn it off altogether if you don't want that impacting you. Or if you want a really good challenge, you can turn it to high or very high, but that is also going to make it difficult to get some of the players you want. So keep that in mind when you're making that decision. Practice squad stealing. Every team has a practice squad. Those are players that you don't want to get rid of altogether, but you don't want them on your active 53. And if you have this on, then you and other teams can steal from each other's practice squads without any hesitation. So if you could just do an advance and all of a sudden, boom, 3 of your practice squad players have been signed. If you don't want that to happen, you can go ahead and turn this off. Just keep in mind, you also won't be able to practice squad steal from another team in the franchise. Relocation settings. Now this is for relocating and getting different uniforms and different team name and stuff. If you want to be able to do this, you have to have it on either users only, which would be just you and whoever else is a human in the league, everyone, which means even CPU teams can do it, or you can have it disabled, which means nobody, including yourself, can relocate a team. And this is the same exact thing as the free agent motivation impact, except for staff talent cost modifier. It costs points that you have to earn through reaching goals in your games to upgrade your talent and your staff. If you have it set on fast, you're going to be able to acquire enough points to upgrade multiple talents almost every week. It's a cheap way to get a maxed out talent tree within like a season or two. If you want more of a challenge, you can go to slow or slower or slowest, and otherwise you just have normal. I feel like they're missing one or two. I thought fastest used to be an option here, but I guess not. But this is just how much points it's going to cost you. So like I have mine set, I think the slow or slower in my franchise, and it cost me like 30 points to upgrade one spot, which seems high, and it is, but now I also have to take multiple seasons to be able to form the best staff possible, and it makes my hiring much more important. And then these are just basic settings to have on in the league. So injury, very self-explanatory. Do you want players to get injured or not? Practice injury. During the week of when you're doing practice and weekly training, which we'll get into in a few minutes here, do you want players to be able to get injured in that situation or just during games? If you want them to just be able to get hurt during actual games, make sure you turn this off. Pre-existing injuries. If there's any injuries to any players before on the active roster you're importing, do you want them to be there, or do you want a fresh slate, fully healthy NFL? Progressive fatigue. This is something that Madden put in to try and make things more realistic and make it harder for you to be able to just run through the season blindly and never have to face any consequences. This comes into play with how much your players play, your practice intensity, how many weeks straight you're doing this, like your schedule can have an impact. I would recommend turning this off because they still haven't been able to figure out how to work it properly. They had it working last year for a little bit, then they somehow broke it again this year. So I would just leave this off if I were you, because it's a headache even for the most experienced gamers to use. So just leave it off, save yourself the headache. Prospect storylines. Every year, of course, you're gonna have a prospect pool to choose from for the upcoming draft. Do you want the news area to deliver you potential storylines that will affect their ratings and their positioning in the draft? I, of course, always have this on because I am intrigued by that kind of stuff. Draft timer. Do you want to be timed on your draft picks? You can still pause it, of course, or you can just turn it off altogether and just draft at your own pace. Fantasy draft order, this is only for if you go in a fantasy draft. It's going to be snake style or standard. So snake, 1 through 32 pick, and then 32 through 1, 1 through 32, 32 through 1, or you can have just a standard 1 through 32 each round. Free agent negotiations stages. So we'll see this later, but this is where you can set how many players you're allowed to bid on in these areas. I like this because it makes you actually decide how many players you're going to go after, and it sort of spans out free agency a little bit more, where it's not everybody signed after the first wave. So just play around with this. You can also put it as unlimited for all if you want, and you don't want a set limit. I usually just stick to the base 5, 10, and unlimited. League type settings. You can adjust what kind of people can join. So if you're going to have friends joining this, you can have them, they can only be coaches, or they can only be coaches and owners, or you can have it as all. You can't do players only. But those are the options you have there. Coach firing. Do you want the CPU to fire coaches? Do you want the game to fire you if you suck as a coach? It can happen if you turn this on. If you don't want any of that to happen, you can just turn it off. I recommend CPU only, so that way there's some shakeup in the league and there's new faces in the coach pool every year if you decide to move on from a coach or change up your staff. Full on field control. This just means that you can adjust things anytime. You can control any player. You can super sim, all that good stuff. I always have this turned on. It's not something that you'll really see impacted if you have it on. It just makes things a lot easier for you to control. So make sure this is on. Instant starter. Now, if you are a player in the league and say you take over a third string running back because you liked him in college, or maybe you just like his name or whatever it is, if you have this on, he's automatically going to start even if he's the worst player at his position. It does not matter what his overall is. If you turn this off, then you'll be in your proper place on the depth chart based off of your ratings. Career clock. So this means, like, once in a while you'll get scenarios that pop up, like a player will want to retire because they're just not feeling it anymore, or things like that. That is what this does. If you have it on, you can potentially have those scenarios. If you turn it off, you won't get them. And then the final part here is dev trait management. So breakout scenarios. You're also going to have scenarios where a player can improve their development grade, which again, I'll explain later, and also improve how much XP they have in a very quick way by having a breakout scenario. So if you want those to happen for you and for the CPU, make sure this is on. And also for the traits that they can earn, which is like Superstar, X Factor, which also helps them progress more. This is the regression side of it. So as players get older and they get worse, they can lose that development trait they had if their season wasn't up to par. I recommend keeping both of these on. And then this is how many of each development tiers you can have: 50 X Factor, 75 Superstar, and 400 Star Dev. So there's normal, Star, Superstar, and X Factor. I usually just roll with default. Some people like to make it a little bit less, and maybe only have enough for only 32 players, one for every team in the entire league. So this is another one where if you're just getting started, I would just leave this alone. I wouldn't touch it too much. Superstar abilities. This one is a hot topic because I don't like superstar abilities much anymore. I'm using them this year because they claim to have made them less overpowered. So this just means if they have Superstar or X Factor and the abilities you can see on their ability screen, which again, we'll go over in a little bit. I know I've said that a lot, but this is just the tip of the iceberg, guys. You can turn this on or off and that'll be able to use those abilities, or they'll just have the development side of it. So either way, they're still at least going to have really good development and get really good if they have a high development. But this is deciding if they can also use those abilities stacked on top of their normal attributes. And then ability edit controls, editing players. So changing jersey numbers, changing faces, changing ratings, contracts. If you want to be able to do those things, make sure you have any player turned on. If you turn it off, you won't be able to edit anybody, not even your own players. So I probably wouldn't do that if I were you. Otherwise, if you're running it with multiple people and you don't trust your friends, set it to commissioner only, and that only people that you appoint as a commissioner can do these kind of edits. And then roster protection. Okay, so there was one more part, sorry. Minimum roster size is set at 46, so you don't have to carry 53 players. That's just the minimum. If you're playing, just like it says up there, if you're playing with multiple users, I would probably recommend like 50, 51 to make sure they're not, shortchanging their roster. But this one is not that important if you're playing by yourself. The CPU is going to do stupid things with their roster regardless of what you do, and you'll learn that as you go through your franchise journey. In-season player movement, you can cap how many times a user can change players, can, you know, cut players, trade players, that sort of thing. I never have this on. I just leave it as unlimited. Player overall cut restrictions, very self-explanatory. How high of an overall does somebody have to be before they are not able to just randomly be cut into free agency? This is a way to stop roster dumpers. If you have a multiple user league and you're afraid of somebody, if you're gonna kick them out, or you guys get in an argument and they're like, screw you, I'm gonna remove everybody on this team and ruin them. You can set this limit so that way they can't cut anybody over a certain amount, and if they do, it's not the important players. And then also the limit on how many they can cut in the offseason. So they can't cut all their players on. You can set it to 5 players or something like that. And then fill roster. This one is one that sort of irritates me. I always have it off. And this is just for you. The CPU is always going to fill its own roster. It's never going to not do this. But for you yourself, if you have this turned on, anytime you sign or cut a player, it's automatically going to replace the player or cut another player. And I hate that because it never chooses the right player. So just leave this off. And just make sure if you sign somebody, you cut somebody to keep the roster intact at 53. And if you cut somebody, make sure to sign somebody so you're not, you know, shortchanging yourself in game day. All right, so that was a lot. I know that was a lot, but the settings are honestly very important for the franchise's health and your fun. So I hope you guys are still with me. Now let's get into the actual franchise and I'll show you guys all the rest of the stuff. So you just go ahead and hit the start playing, and it's gonna bring you right to this screen. Now this is your main home for franchise. This is, like it says, it's home. Yeah, no better way to put that. So every week when you advance, this is the screen you're gonna start on, and it's gonna show you all the upcoming stuff you have to do. So anything down between weekly strategy and advanced week is always here. But if you have extra stuff to do, which you will see as we simulate through these weeks, it'll pop up towards the top here usually, and you know, it will alert you that there's something else you can do, whether it's a breakout scenario, setting your scouts, doing all sorts of stuff like that. So it's a very important thing to keep an eye on this and know what you're looking at. We're gonna go down the list and I'm gonna show you what each of them mean, and then we'll have to sim a few weeks so I can show you the other ones that you'll see pop up, but just for now, these are the basics. We'll run through them. So at the start of every preseason, you're gonna have this thing called training camp up here, and this is a great way to get some players some extra upgrade points before you even get to playing the games. So if you click on training camp, it's gonna bring you to this area where you have all of these different little mini games that you can play. And if you click on one, you can then choose from a player that's designated to be able to run this drill. And once you click on them, let's say we want to go Kirk Cousins, or no, let's go Jaren Hall, the young quarterback. It tells you right here what the rewards are right up above. 20,000, you can get, if you get gold, you'll get 2,000 XP, 1 skill point, which is an upgrade, and 200 rookie snaps. Now the rookie snaps are because if a rookie has a development higher than normal, they have a hidden one, so you don't technically know what their development is until they play enough snaps, which is 500. If you draft somebody with a little blue symbol that says hidden, you could have a star or you could have an X factor, and you will not know until that 500 snaps is up. So this is sort of a way to jump that and get ahead of that if you want to. It's not that important, but it's part of the upgrade package. And you just go through and you choose them all and you run the games. You can restart the games as many times as you want if you want to make sure you hit gold for every player, and you can do one person for every single one of these. So if you think about it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you have 11 different games, which could also be 11 different players that you can get a full upgrade point and extra XP for simply taking the time to do this. I highly recommend doing this every single year to make sure that your players are getting the most out of any upgrades opportunities that they have. The next one is weekly strategy. This is going to be on your screen every single week. And if you click into the weekly strategy, it's going to bring you to this page here. And this is where you decide what your game plan is for the week. So you can click here at the bottom. It's always going to default you to this bottom long tab here where it says choose defensive game plan focus. And you can choose from all of these different options. And it'll tell you down there on the bottom left what is the positive and negative outcome of using these. So you have to make your decisions wisely. And what is your strength going to be? What do you want to avoid? You know, if I want to go defend medium pass, I have to be aware it's going to take my, run support away and make it easier for them to pass it in the short passing game. And you also have some stats here that'll help you make your decision a little bit. and it'll give you a breakdown of their play calling, as so that way you know, like, you know, if they run 56% pass, you might not want to go defend inside run because, well, they pass it more than they run it. So those are the kind of things that you have to decide when you're doing this. This is a whole separate video. Honestly, I think I even did a video about the weekly training. You could probably find on maybe my Madden 23 tips videos. But that's a lot to go over. So if you're interested in more of that, check out my other tip videos. I have 2 different lists. I have Madden 24 tips and Madden 23 tips. A lot of this stuff plays together because the game doesn't change all that often. So if you go back and look at something on 23, chances are it's going to be the same exact thing that happens here. The screen's just going to look a little different. And then over here, if you decide to keep progressive fatigue on, this is your player health and how you decide the practice intensity. So it's going to default to full pad starters, which means all of your starters are going to be practicing all the time, and they're the ones who are going to get all the XP. So I highly recommend, even if you don't want to use progressive fatigue, to come in here, change it to either full pads or half pads, and change it to split so that all of your players on your team are getting reps and gaining XP week to week, and then turning progressive fatigue off, okay? Some people like to do their backups. They don't want their starters practicing. They don't need to upgrade them anymore. Well, you can also choose based off of your position, and you can always change this. You just have to have progressive fatigue turned on in order to change it. You can always turn it right back off though, and it'll hold what you set. That's why I said turn it on in the beginning, set this, then go to the settings menu and turn it off again. And then this is just the same screen, but for the offensive side of the ball. Same thing, you're gonna choose what type of offense you wanna run this week, where do you want the extra cushion in your attributes, and then again, use the stats they show you and the breakdown of the coverages to make your decisions. And the last one is team profile. This is where you're gonna start training. This is also where you can get free practice in. Now, once you do your training, it'll just say free practice on that home screen there. This is where you can, like, if you ever played practice in Madden, it's the same exact thing in franchise. But you also have weekly goals, and this is where you can earn your franchise points for upgrading your staff. So you want to choose things that are 1, attainable, but 2, also lucrative to payouts, right? So I might not want to choose, 2 passing touchdowns because it's only 4 points if I hit it. Whereas if I choose 350 passing yards, I can get 5 points, right? But you also have to decide what is realistic for me to hit, because if I don't hit them, I don't get any points. And there's some that actually have tiers where if I get at least 1 passing touchdown, I'll get 1 point. If I get 2, I get the full 4, and so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind when you're making your decision. You have weekly game plan, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and of course head coach. So each one has to be chosen each week. If you don't choose it, the computer will do it for you, and usually they choose stupid ones. So make sure you go through and do this every week. And then here is the focus players. Now you will get to unlock these 3 on the bottom that you see the little locks on if you upgrade your head coach enough, but that's farther down the line after you get the upgrade points that you need from the games. But you'll have up to 6 players in the focus, and what that means is they're going to get a little bit extra XP in practice, and you can also play those same mini games every single week that you had in training camp. Now you're not going to get as much of a payout from it. It's a much smaller upgrade possibility, but the other nice thing is you could potentially get a dev increase from this situation. Now it's very rare, it does not happen often, but it can happen where a player will just randomly get a development trait increase for simply doing the mini games. So choose your players wisely for focus players. I always do younger players that I'm trying to build up. Sometimes, even if it's an older player and I just want them to get a little bit extra boost because they're not getting it much due to their age, I'll do this because this does not take into account your age or anything. It just gives you a flat amount every time, no matter what you do. And now we get to manage staff. Now there's a lot of stuff under this tab, so this is going to take a minute. So the first one is franchise staff. Now this is where you get to spend the points that you've earned through your weekly training. Every single position has a talent tree like this. Your head coach, offensive, defensive coordinator, and then also your player personnel. This never changes essentially, unless you fire your coach or change your coach or something like that. But if you keep the same head coach, this will never change. And this is like free upgrades for stuff. So if you look here under staff modifications, this is where you get that discount on buying upgrades for your coordinators. So if you want to go with the staff builder approach when you first start, this is where you get that discount from. So you can get up to a 20% discount if you get the second tier in here off any single offensive coordinator when replacing them, buying upgrade points. And then it's really just going through and choosing which one. Because if you look here on the second one, you can only choose one side. Once you choose this side here, like the left side, the right side is going to lock up. Same with down here. You have to choose one of these sides because then the other one's going to lock up. So you have to decide and make good choices for what your team is doing and what you're trying to build. And the best thing to do is just look through all of this stuff and really familiarize yourself with it. I did a full-on staff breakdown, which is another long video, but it explains literally every potential upgrade you have with a staff. So go and check that out. It's under the Madden 24 tips video playlist I have, and it's a longer video, but it explains everything in grave detail. So I'm not going to go over it too much here because I have a whole other video out there for you guys to use for that. I just want to show you what everything is. So this is where you upgrade all your skills and of course your team itself. Of course, you can also fire people too. So if you don't like what your offense is doing, you can fire your offensive coordinator and then you can choose somebody else. Like here, we just fired Justin King. Now it's going to be a blank screen and it's just going to say hire offensive coordinator. If you click in here, it's going to give you a whole bunch of different people that you can potentially hire. And if you hire somebody new, that little hiring bonus there, right at the bottom right of that text block, you will get free points for hiring them. And you can see what they have. Like for instance, Jamie Rodriguez has 1 talent under pocket passing and 1 under halfback guru. Ryan Warner has 1 under power running and 1 under receiver guru. Nick Gregory has none for the first 2, but he has 3 for offensive line guru. So you have to decide which one you want because it might not be what your team is. So make sure you're making good decisions here. If you want to have a guy that's all about the offensive line and the run game, you might want to choose Nick Gregory. If you want somebody that's all about your receivers, you might want, Brian Warner. And of course, if you want somebody that's focused on your running backs, Jamie Rodriguez might be your guy. So pay attention to when you're doing this stuff and then just go down here, hit hire, and they always hire. You never have to bid, nothing like that. The next one is team schemes. This is where you can set what you want to run for your scheme and your playbook. You want to make sure that you match your scheme with your playbook. So if you're going to change your playbook, so let's say we're going to go and we're going to run Denver's playbook. Obviously, I want to make sure that it's a fit for my team. So Denver, and always make sure you're reading that little paragraph right underneath on the top there, above that thick line. This playbook is built on a multiple power run scheme. So that means I want to go here and go to multiple power run. And look, it's only a 68% match. Is it enough for what I'm okay with? If you look, you can see that almost my whole line fits it. And it's really my running back and my left tackle that doesn't fit it. Well, I can get by with that. So let's go ahead and let's run it. And this is what your playbook will default to when you go into the game. This is also fun because you can actually look at your opponents too. If you hit the R2 button or whatever system you're playing on, it's the back right trigger button. You can go to your next, the other teams and see what they're running. You can't change their information, but you can see what they're running. Like we can see Buffalo, they're running a vertical power run. They have a 75% scheme fit and their playbook matches that. And you can see what kind of formations they have, what kind of sets they have, and how many plays they have in those sets. So you know what you can expect to see from this team when you play them. The next one is formation subs. Now, this is going to be for those who are a little bit more seasoned with the game and actually have certain players they want running certain formations. And it's exactly what you think it is. Every formation you have is listed here based off the playbook you have chosen. And you can click in here, go to any position, and change it to a qualified player. So if you go on the offensive line or the tight end position, you're only going to be able to choose tight ends or an offensive lineman because those are what's coded as being okay as a technical tight end. If you go outside to receiver, you're only going to get wide receivers and tight ends. But essentially, you can decide where your players line up in every single formation. If you want to get really creative with it, you can spend an hour in here going through all of these formations and sets in the formations and changing up where they all line up. So again, this is for much more advanced people that are really trying to have a particular playbook and a particular setup. So for those who are just starting, this might not be for you, but it's still fun to play around with. And you have one play where you're like, oh man, I really want my best receiver to run this, but it's set up for the other receiver. You can go in here and change him to that set. And now he will line up in that route that you really like to throw to your other receiver. And the last one is auto subs. Now, auto subs sort of suck this year, to be quite honest with you. They just don't really work that well. They haven't for years, but essentially what this is saying is this is for the fatigue your players have. So every play they run, their fatigue drops a little bit until they have some rest for a play or two. This is when they will sub in. So when your player has an 80% fatigue bar, they will sub in the game. If they drop below 60, they're going to sub out until they're back above 80. So I like to mess with these, and I'll put this up to like 70, because otherwise, once they get down to like below 70, you'll start seeing them like hands on their knees panting and stuff because they're tired, and that can lead to more fumbles and more injuries and just issues. So I don't want them playing if they're out of breath like that. I want them resting. Let me get one of my other guys in here, you know, and that's how you can do it. And if you don't want them to come back in until they have some extra juice, raise it up to 85, and then you should see players subbing out more frequently. Now in Madden, you essentially have to set these up so stupid crazy high because the game just does not know how to properly coordinate this stuff. So if you want more of a rotation of your players, you want to have these numbers really high to make sure that, you know, there is no way they can't sub out. And you still might not see it happen too much because, again, Madden just cannot seem to get this to work properly. Now that we're done with manage staff, we're going down to manage roster, and this one's got a lot of stuff too. So your top one here, NFL rosters, this one is very, very, very basic. It is literally just the roster of all the teams. It's going to automatically place you on your team, of course. You can cycle through the positions and you can cycle through the teams. And this is also the screen where you can see their ratings. You can see their development traits. You can edit them. So if you click on a player, it's going to bring it to this screen here. And on this screen, you see all of this different stuff here. The goals just as if you have a particular goal set for that player, which there really never are set. So just ignore that one. View and depth charts, another one you can just ignore. This is just going to take you to the depth chart screen, but there's a separate tab for that, which I'll show you in a minute. So just ignore this one as well. Stats and contracts can be a good one because this has a lot of information in it. The first one is going to be their career stats. So every year, what kind of statistics have they had as a player? You can go to season stats to see what they have on the season, but there's also another spot for that. And then there's contract and skills. So this is going to show you what their contract is right now and what their motivations are. And then you can see their awards. So if they were like where they were picked in the draft is going to show here. It'll tell you if they were undrafted too, how many Pro Bowls they've had, any other accolades, if they've won the Super Bowl, those kind of things will all be here showing what this player has accomplished in their career. And it also has their traits here, which can also be seen from the edit screen, but they also have it listed here. If you don't want to go into the edit screen, then you don't have to. This one is just removing or adding as captain. If you want to add somebody as a captain or remove them, you can do that here. Add to trade block. If you want computer teams to make offers on your player automatically for you, you can just add them to the trade block, and you will, in that front home page on the franchise, you will see like trade offer from so-and-so, and it'll give you a trade offer for that player. And if you want to accept it, you can. If you don't, you just decline it. So that's up to you. Go through your team. You can add whoever you want to the trade block. There's no minimum or maximum amount of players. Trade away. This of course will bring you to the trade center screen and automatically place them as one of the people you're trading away. Release, self-explanatory. You're releasing this player into the free agency world. And then this is where you can edit the player. If you click on edit player, it's going to bring you to this screen. You can change their name, their position, their number, what hand they're dominant in, their college, their age. You can also edit their appearance, which is their gear they're wearing and the face they have and things like that, what their body looks like, all that sort of stuff. If you pan over, this is where all the ratings are. You can change their ratings if you want to. I don't do this, but some people like to just make their own game, and that's the beauty of this game. You can play it however you want. So if you want your player to be maxed out at 99, this is where you go to do that. This is also where the player traits are, and you can change the player traits if you want to. If you want to change them to be able to be not paranoid, but ideal and sense pressure, you can do that. And then you can also adjust their contract and change that if you want. If you don't want to have to re-sign this player, you can max them out to a 7-year, make this a 2-year deal, and now they just got extra cheap for you. Doesn't hurt your cap as much, and you have them for longer. And then the very next one is your trade center. So when you go here, you're going to have this screen: trade block, upgrade position, and trade finder. I never use upgrade position. I think it's sort of weird. I use trade block sometimes. Now, if this is set, any player on any team that has been placed on the trade block will show here. So you know that this team is more willing to trade you these players than another player. So this is sometimes a good spot if you're not sure who you want to trade for. You're just looking for an upgrade at a position. You know that these players will be a little bit easier for you to get on your team than just trying to trade for anybody. So it sometimes can save you the hassle of wasting time trying to find a trade that works. And you'd be like, okay, well, I like this guy, so let's try and make a trade for me. You click on him, and it'll ask you player or draft pick. Let's go player. And then it'll take you right here for you to choose what player you want to trade them to get him on your team. You can just go here, boom. Okay, I'm going to offer him Brandon Powell for him. And if you want to see if the trade will go through, you just click start. Yep. And well, they weren't interested, so we have to go back to the drawing board, but you get the picture. Upgrade position is going to show you, is going to have you pick which one here. So let's just say halfback. And what it's going to do is essentially bring you to the trade center screen, but only put you on halfback. So it's sort of pointless. Again, I never use this. Just use Trade Finder and you're good. And Trade Finder is exactly what you think it is. It's a blank slate. You can choose which team you want to trade with, and then you just choose here and you cycle through and you choose who you want to trade for on this team. It's going to populate them on the side of the team where they're listed. And then you can hit advance, and then you choose your players, you hit start, and you see if they accept it or not. One feature they added this last year and sort of made a little bit better this year is get offers. And what that means is I can add any player to this trade thing here. Let's say Kirk Cousins. Hit start, and you'll see way at the bottom there, now triangle has a button, get offers. If I click on it, it's going to automatically populate trade offers from other teams for your player. So if I want to trade him to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know I can get that 84 overall corner, a 3rd round pick, and a 5th round pick. All you have to do is hit select, and then you can choose yes to accept it if you want to, but it will go through immediately. So don't mess around with this if you're not sure about the trade. Or you can hit counter offer. And if I hit counter offer, it's going to populate that trade package, but in the Trade Finder screen, and then I can adjust it how I want. And if I, well, you know what? I see you offered me a 5th, but I actually want your 3rd, and I don't want your 5th, but I want this guy. And then you can go from there and see if they'll accept it. And then below that is free agents, and that's exactly what you think it is. It is just the area where players are listed that are not signed to a team that you can sign freely. It'll always give them a 1-year contract, and it'll tell you exactly how much it's going to cost you. There's no negotiating this. You have to give them what they want. So if you don't have $7.5 million to sign La'el Collins, you just won't be able to sign him. And then you can also cycle, of course, by position. But then over on the right side, you can also cycle by practice squad eligible. So this is players that are less than 2 years in the league. Practice squad ineligible, so players that are not able to be put on a practice squad. And also on practice squad. So if you want to only look at players that teams have on their practice squad, you can look here. Now there's nothing populated because we're in preseason and practice squads are not set yet. So you will have to wait until week 1 to have players populate here that are on other teams' practice squads. And of course you have to have practice squad stealing on in order to be able to sign these players. But this just makes it a much easier task to look through. I actually use this one quite a bit when I'm trying to find some young players to use. So sorry it's a blank screen right now, but I didn't think that through before I started talking in preseason week 1. And below that is your depth chart. So depth chart is just the pecking order on your team. If you want a certain player to start over another player, you have to change them here. Like if I want Madison to start over Akers, I'm going to put him here. And then it goes for every single position all the way down through the list. And now once you get past here, there's specialty positions that you have to make sure you set, like kick returner, punt returner, kickoff safety, which is also just kickoffs in general. So if you want this guy to be your kickoff kicker, this is what you have to set it for. The important ones though are when it starts here at 3DRB. This is 3rd down running back. And this is essentially the running back that's going to be in the game on almost all of your shotgun formations. So you definitely want to make sure you have this player set because he will probably get the majority of snaps if he's set as 3rd down back, even over your starting running back, depending on what kind of playbook you run. Same with power back. If it's a power run formation, you know, like your I formation where you have the fullback in there, or goal line where you have a bunch of tight ends in there to help block for running plays, this is the running back that's going to be in there regardless of their overall and regardless of what you have set way down here at the halfback position. SLWR, that's slot receiver. So this means that KJ Osborne is going to start in the slot. So the receiver that lines up in the middle of the formation every time, no matter what. So this is really your 3rd and 4th receiver right here. Because if I would put Justin Jefferson here, even though he's my number 1 receiver, he would not play outside in any formation that has 3 receiver sets. He would automatically go down here in the slot, and that's where he would play from. So if you want particular players to play on the inside of your formations at receiver, you want them here in this positioning here. RLE, RE, and RDT. These are all your defensive line positions for when you're running nickel or dime coverage. So a lot of teams run nickel dime routinely because that's just the way the NFL is. So if you do not have this set up properly, then they are not going to be playing. So you want to make sure that your best edge rushers are set up for RLE and RRE, and your best defensive tackles are set up here, because this is the majority of what you're going to be running all day, because this is just how the NFL works. You're running nickel a lot now in today's NFL. And then sub linebacker, of course, this is the same thing. Nickel, dime, the linebackers that are on the field instead of what you have set at the normal position. So make sure these two are set. And then the same thing here for the slot corner as it is for the slot receiver. Whoever is listed as 1 here will automatically slide to the inside of the formation as your slot corner, or nickel corner as some call, no matter how you have it listed in the regular cornerback depth chart down over here. Below depth chart is called adjust lineup, and this is sort of just a different look to the depth chart screen, and this sort of gives more of a MUT look. They introduced this a few years back, and it's really just a way to change the depth chart. You can just slide this guy down and boom, now Nick Mullins is the starter. Slide him up, do the same thing. I never really use this screen, but some people like it, you know, whatever. But it really doesn't do much different other than the depth chart already, and the depth chart has more control over it, so I always use depth chart. Team salaries is right below that one. This is where you're going to learn about how much money your team has, how much they have to spend, how much your players cost individually, and also like how many years they have left on their contracts. This is also a good tool to use if you're trying to like save some money and you want to cut a player, but you don't want to take on too much penalty. This is a good spot to find out who's got the most savings compared to their penalty. If you need a lot more information about how contracts work and what to look for, go and check out my Madden 23 tips playlist, because I have a video breaking down everything about contracts and what to look for, and it'll help you a lot more, but it would take me a long time to go over every aspect of some of this stuff. So some of this stuff you can find in other videos of mine, and just sort of piece it together. But this is where everything is contract related and how you can decide who to cut, who to re-sign, who to keep, you know, all sorts of stuff. But I always look at the top right here where it has all those numbers listed, because that's going to tell you, you know, how much rollover you have from last year, how much cap space you have, which is of course the most important number, how much rookie reserve you have, and things of that. Below that, you have re-signed players. And this is just going to show you the players that currently are not going to be under contract for you next year, and you can negotiate re-signing with them. Now they unlock at different weeks. Most of these are at week 3, but if you go farther down, you'll see some that are, okay, apparently not. Everybody's open at week 3 in this little roll here, but if some of them might not open until week 8 for you to negotiate with, and this is a way for you to try and re-sign them, and you can have once in a while, a player will only let you offer them 1 contract and they'll decline it and they'll say, I'm not signing with you. But most of the time you have multiple times to try and re-sign them, and they'll say, hey, I need more signing bonus. Hey, I need a longer term, you know, something like that. So you would just click here. It'll take you right to the screen where you can set the kind of contract you want to offer them, and of course offer it to them. And then up at the top right there, it shows you what cap room you have going forward, because this uses your future cap room. It's not using your cap room this year. So if you know this year sucks, but you have a lot of money next year, you'll still be able to re-sign these players even though it's this year, because it won't take effect until next season. Improved team is another one that I just don't really use. This one is a little bit better, I guess, because this by position will show you all the players you could get, and it'll even show you players that are, I believe, on the trade block, if I'm not mistaken. It used to, at least. Yeah, I guess it just shows you free agents. But if players are added to the trade block, it would sometimes populate them here. This is just a more difficult and clustered version of free agency, so I never really use this. But if you want to use it to be cool, you can go ahead and sign somebody from here. And then the very last thing on this one is the injury report, and that's exactly what you think it is. It's going to tell you who on your team is injured, how long they're injured for, what their injury is, if they're on IR or not. And you can of course look at any team in the league for this as well. It's not just your team. Before we move on from the managed rosters, I wanted to come back here and show you some more of the things in the player card that I started showing you before because I forgot about them. So if you switch over here on the player card, and this of course is done by just going to the player on the roster screen and clicking X or A or whatever it is that's on your controller. And then you get here, you hit R1 or the left trigger button, or right trigger button, sorry. You hit the right trigger button, it'll bring you over to this page. And this just gives you a sort of rundown of their main attributes you need to worry about and some information about them. Like you can see here, Justin Jefferson is the #1 ranked receiver. It'll tell you where they rank in the league depending on their overall. It gives you some of their traits, and then of course it'll tell you some of their more important attributes. Health. If you have progressive fatigue on, this is going to tell you if their fatigue level is good, and it'll also tell you if it's getting low, if it's going to affect their gameplay, things like that. Progression history. As the weeks go on, it'll show you every single XP gain they get, every single upgrade they get, development trait increase or decrease here. Anything about progression is going to be shown here for you going all the way back. I think it goes back like a full season. Motivations and tags. This is what I mentioned before. This is how players decide if they want to re-sign with you. You know, motivations for Justin Jefferson. Has a franchise quarterback. No income tax. He doesn't like that about Minnesota. Historic championships. Bad time to be a Viking for Justin Jefferson. But this will tell you what they are motivated by. And then here, abilities. These are the X Factor and Superstar abilities we were talking about in the settings menu. Some players are so good that they have extra juice to them. And these players, of course, you can change them as well if you want to choose from this list of what you want and just read that little paragraph there. It'll tell you what it is. So for instance, double me, aggressive receivers overpower defenders and attack the football. When they enter the zone, this ability increases their success rate on aggressive catches against one-on-one or single coverage. And it tells you how to get there. You have to make 20+ yard catches. So big, long plays to this receiver will light up their X factor and allow double me to be used. And if you have, I think it's like 3 or 4 plays in a row where they're not targeted, they will fall out of their X factor. And then they also have different abilities too, and you can just cycle through these, see which ones you think are going to work best for your players if you end up using abilities or not. And then this one is manage team. For the coach, it just brings you here. You can either rebuild your stadium or relocate the stadium. And this is also where you would go if you want to relocate the team altogether and choose a different city to go to and a different uniform set. This is where you would go for that. If you choose owner mode here, this managed team is going to have where you can set the ticket prices and set concessions and all the pricing every week. But it also means that you have more to worry about because that's going to unlock available funds, which is essentially your signing bonus money. So if you have that turned on, you're also going to have to worry about trying to manage making money to be able to sign players. So that's why I always choose coach, because it's just too much hassle for me. Staff moves. This is just one that shows you if teams have moved on from coaches. So because we fired and hired our offensive coordinator, it has it shown here. And of course it'll show for every team. So any coach that's fired or hired will be shown here. And it usually populates at the end of the season. And so just keep an eye out for it if you're interested in that kind of stuff. And then of course you have your play the game or your advanced week. So I'm not going to show you what these two do because they're pretty self-explanatory. We are going to go through these other cycles though here. So the first one is news. This one has little tweets that are made up about things going on around the league. They're very generic in the beginning of your franchise, but as you go through, it'll talk about like the scores of the games and players heading towards, record setting performances. And this is also where if you have prospect storylines turned on, it'll populate stories about your upcoming draft class. It doesn't have anything listed here yet, but it might after a couple of weeks. So if you're interested in like little tidbits about the rest of the teams, you can come here to find out about it. League, this one is a good spot that I like to use. Standings. So if you want to know all of the standings for all of the teams, you just click here and it'll let you cycle through the entire league to show where all the teams are standing with their wins and losses. Schedule. It's exactly what it says it is. It's your schedule. You can either look at your team schedule individually, or you can look at the whole league schedule and see what every game this week is going to be. Of course, you can also just do your team schedule. You can also force wins here too. So if you want to, if you're trying to, create your own story and you want certain teams to be good, you can actually go here and let's say the Vikings at Seahawks. I want my Vikings to win. Well, we know the Seahawks are the home team, so the force win has to go to the away win, right? So you can literally rig your franchise if you want to. I wouldn't recommend doing it, but you can do it if you want. So that's just a little option I figured I'd let you guys know about, because it's not something that everybody knows because nobody thinks about it, but you can essentially force a team that you're not even controlling to go undefeated or completely defeated if you hate them. You can also do it from the league's schedule too. So if you're just looking at games, you're like, you know what, I think the Patriots should win this game, so I'm gonna make the Patriots win. And then if you go down here and you're like, you know, I really want the Jets to beat the Panthers, I can do that. I'm gonna force an away win, so now the Jets will have to win that game once I sim it. Stats and awards, this is a nice spot too. This will show you all the different stats. So player stats, so individual stats. It'll have the same, it'll look just like the roster page does, except it'll just show you stats instead of overalls and attributes. Legacy leaderboard, I never use this. This just shows you like how many legacy points that a player or a head coach has. I've never really cared for it, but it's there if you want to see it. Team stats, if you want to know how good your team is on offense overall for the rest of the league, you can go here and you can see where everybody stacks up against for all these different ratings here. You go offense, defense, conversion percentages, red zone efficiency, penalties, turnover margin. So a lot of good information here if you're really into the statistics of football. And then once you get to playing games and you get to past week 8, you'll have weekly and yearly awards. So anybody who wins a weekly player award will be shown here, and it'll show a little snippet of their stats. Yearly awards, it'll keep track of who's in first, second, and third place to win MVP or offensive player of the year. And then also at the end of the year, it'll show you the Pro Bowl rosters here. It's just locked right now because we haven't even played a weekly game yet. NFL records, it just shows all the NFL record books, and if any player starts creeping up this list, it will keep it up in real time. So if you have a quarterback who ends up passing 89,214 yards throwing, you'll see them slowly creeping up this list all the way up here until they reach Tom Brady, and then you'll see their name at the top of the screen. So sometimes once you get farther in, it's sort of fun to see where players are and if some records are being broken. So once in a while, I'll find myself doing this, and you can do career, season, or just simple game records as well. So there's a lot of options to track here for you. Career stats. This is just like the single player stats, but this shows you their entire career. It doesn't break it down by year. It just has every single thing they've ever done listed here in form for you. And I love looking at this sometimes too, especially with a veteran player like Kirk Cousins. Like, dang, he's had 252 touchdowns. Maybe we're close to getting him top 10 for so-and-so, by the end of his career. So if you're into that stuff, this is a good spot for you as well. And then coach stats. It's exactly what you think it is. Win-loss records, where they've placed, how many winning seasons they've had, and all sorts of stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, you can even see their postseason stats. If you want to see how good of a coach is Mike McCarthy, he's almost 50% in the playoffs. So not the best, but he's also been there a lot. So again, some just stats for the people that are into those things. I'm a numbers guy, so I love looking at that stuff. I try to implement it in my franchise as much as possible. So if you're into that, you'll probably love this page. And then below that is the X Factor database. This just shows you every player that has an X Factor or superstar ability. I forgot to turn this off. So anybody that has an X Factor or a superstar ability is going to be listed here, and you can also cycle through teams to just see if a team, the Bears, they have one player that's a superstar, and it's DJ Moore. And you can also edit these players from this screen too. So if I click on Jamar Chase, it's going to bring me to his player card, and I can look at him more. I can try to trade for him. I can edit him if I want. So just a little quick cut through the rope of avoiding the normal development players and star development players and just going for the higher end player. League transactions. If you do any type of transaction, it's going to show you in here for every team. So anything from editing a player, firing an offensive coordinator, trading for a player, drafting, so like every single transaction that happens is logged here, and it goes back a pretty good amount once you start filling it up. So you can actually go back and see what happened, like I would say at least 5 or 6 weeks prior. So if you want to keep track of things going on in your league, this is probably the best way to do it. A nice little tidbit too, if you are in a league and you don't know if you can trust the commissioners messing with the draft class, it'll show you if they've edited the draft class from here. It has, I think, It does. It has a draft class edit screen. So if you think somebody might have messed with the draft class and you don't trust them, you can see if they saw all the ratings and messed with it at all. And then here is league history. This one I wish was way more complex, but it's not. It just gives you this quick screen of who the Super Bowl winner was, who played, who was the Super Bowl MVP, and who won all of the major yearly awards for that season. And it goes all the way back, and it'll count your years as well. So if you want to know who won in 2025 when you're in 2030, you can come back here and you can see exactly sort of what happened. I wish there was a way to track like the division standings every year and things like that, but we don't have that right now. So this is the best we get. And then on to the final one, which is options. And this is the franchise settings is what we went over before we started this franchise. So I'm not going to go into that. User settings. This is like your basic settings, like how much audio you want on certain things, what kind of coloring you want, what kind of on-field markers you want. So this I'm not going to go over too much. This is just, you know, the main settings page, right? This isn't really franchise related. You have the same settings outside of franchise that you can mess with. Members page, this is only here for if you do an online franchise, and it just shows you a layout of the entire league. You can see I'm here on the Vikings, and if you have other players with you or your friends with you, it'll show you what team they're on, and you can adjust things from here too. Like if you want to clear somebody's cap penalties, you can do that. If you want to kick them, you can do that. If you want to set them on autopilot, you can do that. Also, if you want to make them a commissioner, you do that from this screen. And then of course down here is the retire option. Now, you can choose to retire a player, a coach, an owner, whoever you want. You can also use this to make a new coach, right? If you want to create a different coach for your team, you can do that. If you retire from the league, though, you're essentially, you know, quitting the franchise. So don't do that unless, you know, you're trying to delete the franchise. But if you want to create a new character, you can just go here, and it'll tell you like you're gonna lose all of your certain stuff with your character, yada yada yada. But then you can go in back and choose if you want to be an owner or a coach or a player on a different team, or you could even rejoin the same team with a different coach if you want to. Like maybe you're like, oh wait, I want to be a coach, but I also want to change coaches. So after 5 years, I'm gonna rename my coach to John Smith, and you know, you can do that. So, oh, and I should probably mention here on this screen, it's always going to show you your matchup and your overall, but then on the bottom there where you see top threat, you can cycle through this with the right trigger and it'll show you like your matchup and where you guys rank in the rest of the season, in the rest of the league for like your offense and your defense and how you stack up against them. It'll show you their top threats, you know, things like that. And then of course you can always see your standings from this screen as well. So just figured I'd throw that in there in case you guys were wondering what that box was down there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sim. I'll stop once I see something I really want to show you guys. Look at that, it only took 1 week. Anytime your players earn development, you'll get this upgrade players tab. And then these are all the players that earned an upgrade from last week between training and the game that we played. So up in the top right below their overall, you'll see that bar where it says 3,091 out of 5,615. Every single week under progression history, you can see how much he earned. So you can see that from training and the downs played, he earned 591 XP towards that goal. And if they fill that bar up, they get this upgrade point, and you can choose any of the archetypes to upgrade. And it's going to give you a random roll of the type of attributes it needs to upgrade that position. So if I want to upgrade, let's say slot for Jordan Addison, I just click here and it's going to roll and tell me what I've upgraded. Catch in traffic, catching, medium route, short route. It's different every time. Of course, you'll see repeat rolls, but it's always randomized with certain percentages based off of what's more difficult to upgrade and what should be more easily upgradable as a player. Now, if you want to go through and choose every single one of them, I do that myself. You can do that. Otherwise, if you just hit triangle, it'll just let you upgrade all of them at the same time, and the computer will just choose what to upgrade for them. And if you don't want to worry about that, it's not a bad choice. Just go ahead and do it, and there you go. You don't have to worry about going through every player. Just know that if you do that, the players will end up being lopsided because the computer like defaults to your scheme fit every time. So if you have like an agile offensive lineman, they're only going to upgrade like zone blocking. If they won't upgrade like the power side. So if you keep doing it, eventually it'll be way outweighed. So you might not want to do it all the time, but it's not bad if you have a lot of lower end players that you really don't care about upgrading too much and you have too many of them and you're just sick of it. Just go ahead and just upgrade all at the same time. You'll see these little red dots next to a thing when you have something to do. So that's why you saw it on upgrade players last week. And once you gain enough points to upgrade something and manage staff, it'll have that little red dot there. So keep an eye out for that. It's just a little indicator like, hey, you should probably check me out before you move on. And now once you get past the first 3 weeks of preseason, you have this bye week in preseason, which is where you cut players. Now, because I use the active roster, it already has the players cut down, but in your normal amount, it's going to say, you know, cut so and so many players, and it'll take you to a screen where it just says release player or add to practice squad, and you just go through and you add them, release them, however, until you get down to 53. Week 1 is also very important because you can set season goals. So if you want to try and set your coaching goals to get 7 wins or make the playoffs, you can do that here, and it will tell you, and this goes for like if you have coach firing turned on for yourself, you can commit this, but if you don't hit it, you run the risk of getting fired by your own team. So keep that in mind if you decide to do this. Week 1 is also sort of a big part of just getting the franchise ready. So this is where you're going to choose your draft class. You're going to see them populate here, so that way you can set them. So first you're going to do choose draft class. If you want to just let the game make your draft class at random, do the keep auto generated rookies. If you want to download a custom draft class from the communities tab, click here. And if you've already saved a draft from the communities tab that you want to upload, or you saved one that you created yourself in a different franchise, you can import it here. I always just keep auto generated. And then the next part, of course, is hiring scouts. So every year you're going to have scouts, which is 5 scouts. You'll have 1 tier 3, 1 tier 2, and 3 tier 1s. And they're going to have expertise in certain positions. Now, you want to do is look at your prospects and see what is the best for the national scout. So the national scout they're going to cover everybody at that position as a whole. So if I want all the quarterbacks drafted, if I get a scout that has quarterback as an expertise, and I set them to national with a tier 3, because tier 3 unlocks the most percentage towards the prospects, and I'll show you what I mean. You guess it in a couple of minutes. This is the tier 3 is what you want, because if you want to get them to 100%, you want to know everything about them, you want that tier 3 scout on that position, and you can only do it for one position. So you have to be careful with it and choose wisely. You can also from this screen, and this will just be like once you have the scout players, it'll have look at regional breakdown as an option. But from here, you can hit view regional prospects, and it'll just take you to that region and show you the different players that are going to be in the draft upcoming, right? And you can break down to Northeast, Southeast, Central, West. You can also make your own favorites list, and then all regions. And then down here at the bottom is the Manage Scouts tab. And the Manage Scouts tab is where you can hire and fire scouts. So let's say I don't want a running back scout as this guy, so I'm going to fire him. I'm going to hit L2 and go to free agent scouts, and that's in the top right corner there where you see that L2. And then you can choose from these scouts to hire. Now remember, you can only have 1 tier 3 and 1 tier 2. The other 3 have to be a tier 1. So you have to choose wisely with which one you want to have more information unlocked about. And I'll just cycle through, and maybe I want to, maybe I want to have D tackle as one. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to hire Ashley Medina, hit triangle, confirm. And now Ashley Medina is one of my scouts. And then of course you're going to put them in their certain areas of where they're going to scout. And you'll set that in week 3. I'll show you guys that when we get there. You're also going to have these little things pop up like opening day keys, and it'll say a whole bunch of things, but it's basically speaking to the media about your upcoming situation. And if you click on it, it's going to take you to this podium screen, and you're going to have to choose from 2 to like 4 answers. And this can affect your upgrade for the week and also how much XP you earn. So if I say I want to have a stifling defense or let's say dominating offense, it's going to, talk and talk and talk. Oh, I want to have a passing game. You can skip this. If you want to read it, you can, and it'll tell you, beat the Buccaneers, throw for 350 yards. Focus your offensive game planning around that. And if you end up meeting that goal, you can get extra XP or extra boosts to your players for a week or 2, or just extra XP for all of your offense for whatever you want to use it for. So those can be good if you choose right. And if you do with what it says. But be careful. If you do something and you miss it miserably, especially with certain players, they might actually lose morale, which will bring their overall down for a little bit and it'll make them harder to play with. So you have to be wise with what you're choosing. You can't just go all willy-nilly with it. And now here it is. It's the response to that, what we set last week. So we did not hit our game plan, right? So we didn't hit it. It says it there. We didn't execute our plan. You know, you go through the talking motions and it'll tell you, you still got the win though, so you get 1,000 XP. Now, if we would have earned it and gotten the goal, we might have gotten like 3,000 XP for the entire team or something like that. Something better than what we got. Plus, you can also get staff points from these as well. Anytime you have a new injury, it'll also populate here on one new injury. And if you click here, it'll take you to the injury report and show you what your current injury report looks like. But now, after week 2 hits, you're going to have scout college players here every single week. And if you click here, this is where we were before with managing scouts. This is the page you see. Prospects is simply looking at all of the prospects available. And if you click on them, it'll show you some information about them. You know, their player profile, what their fits are, their physicals, so like what their combine ratings were. It'll give you a range at the beginning and it'll narrow it down the closer you get to the draft. And then there's skills. So if you unlock some, like we know, for instance, Joey Newby has a break sack. It's not going to give you the overall, but it'll give you their grade to help you make a decision when drafting your players. Scouts. This is where you have your scouts. If you want to change who you have to do that before you pass week 1. That's very important. I should have mentioned that last. You cannot fire or hire scouts after week 1, regardless. You have to have it in place by week 1. So week 1 is very important. Don't forget to do that. The regional breakdown, that's the one we saw before, where you can see what the regional breakdown is. If you go to West, it'll say, okay, the strengths here, strong safety, quarterback, corner, weaknesses, right end, right guard, left guard. So you're going to want to avoid having a weakness being scouted there, and you're going to want a strength to be scouted there unless you just really need a certain position. You have to do a weakness. You can do that, but just know you're not going to get as good of results from doing that. And then mock drafts populate every few weeks. There's 5 per season, and it'll just show you what the game thinks is going to be the who's drafted. And I'll tell you right now, the game essentially tells you what the computer teams are going to draft with almost 100% accuracy. So if you see a player that's going to go before your pick, don't think it's going to just miraculously fall to you. That player will be gone by the time you pick them. So you can use that as a tool to try and maneuver yourself in the draft ahead of time, give yourself a little bit of an advantage. And here you can see already we have a mock draft out, so I'll show you what that screen looks like. You can access this from the Scout College players, or you can also click on the tab if it populates, but this is what it looks like. It just tells you where players are going to go, essentially. So if we're down here at 24 and I want to draft Eric Diaz, I know that I have to be above the Cardinals because the Cardinals are going to take Eric Diaz. This game does not really get it wrong, and it'll change every single time throughout the season depending on where teams are located, who has risen up the draft boards, who's done worse, all sorts of stuff. So this is very helpful. Make sure you check this out when you're trying to draft because it will give you a lot of insight as to where players are going to go that you're trying to target. And then once you hit week 3, players ready to negotiate will pop up. And this is the re-sign players screen that we saw earlier, but this just takes you right to it. And now I just wanted to quickly show you what this looks like now that it's unlocked. So if I want to start re-signing Danielle Hunter, I can click start negotiations. It'll bring me to this screen. I can see up in the top right what our depth is at the position. So I know, should I really re-sign this guy? Yeah, I probably should. The next best guy is a 69. Not very good, right? And you can adjust this. Now you can also do generic offers, which I actually like. I think it keeps things more interesting for myself. You can do neutral, player friendly, very player friendly, custom offer, which is it'll just default to if you change any of this stuff around like at all, or team friendly. Now, team friendly and neutral, you only want to offer that if that interest in your team bar at the bottom right is completely filled up in green. If it's not, you're not going to really get away with neutral. You're going to have to go player friendly, very friendly, or you're going to have to do a custom offer off of what one of them is. So I'm just going to go here and offer a player friendly deal. So 5 years, and I'm just going to hit make offer, and he's happy to sign. So boom, it's done. and it updates your cap room immediately. Now we're down to 80 million, takes them out, and now it's just the remaining players. So you can decide to do this. You can also withdraw an offer. Like if I know that I am never, ever going to re-sign Brandon Powell, I can just hit square. It'll withdraw offer, and now he will not populate in the screen once I simulate past the week. And then at the end of the season, you also have the option of tagging up to 1 player. So this is the same screen where you'll do that at. And this is also the same screen you get when you are cutting players as well. This is what it looks like. Also, week 3 is important for regional focus scouting. This is where you're going to click on here. Always make sure you manually choose your scouting focus, because the computer sucks and it'll do like quarterback for every position. So what it's going to do is it's going to bring you back to this page here. And you can't do national yet. That's in week 7. It's the same process, but you can do west, central, northeast, and southeast. And now the set focus scouting is unlocked. And if I want to change what this guy is going to scout, I can just simply click on set focus scouting, change it to a position, hit X again. Boom, he is set to scout that position now. And you want to do that for every position to make sure that you're scouting the positions you want based off the region that they're covering. And here I wanted to stop because I know I've showed you these little scenario things before, but this one is for a breakout. So I want to show you what this one looks like. So once in a while, if a player has a good week in game, they'll get a chance to have a breakout scenario. And this one is for a wide receiver. We know it's not Justin Jefferson because that dude's maxed out. And this one's not going to tell us. So lovely thing about Madden, sometimes the screens don't work properly. So it just says, really appreciate you involving me in the game plan. It gets boring out there just running routes, yada yada. Keep throwing them my way. I truly believe I have the potential to be one of the best players on this team. Okay, so it was KJ Osborne. It'll tell you what you have to get and who it was in order for their development to go up 1. So KJ Osborne needs 3 touchdowns or 150 receiving yards. And if you get that, he will go up 1 development trait. So from like if he's at star, he'll go to superstar. If he's at normal, he'll go to star. And then you'll also get XP points for it. All right, so I took a pit stop here in week 11 because that is when 2 things pop up: prospect spotlight and scouting focus player. So there's going to be things that could pop up every single week. I didn't show you every single one of them that popped up. We had a couple more breakouts, a couple more, quarterback check-ins, which is another one of those like media press conference type things, which doesn't do a whole lot of difference from what I already showed you. But I wanted to show you these. So prospect spotlight, your GM is going to sit you down and tell you to look at a specific player. We may want to take a deeper look at right outside linebacker Eli Edens. He's been standing out from other prospects in terms of his football IQ. And you can say, okay, yada yada, let's consider scouting him. And you can do just that. But the most important part is the scouting focus player. Now there's going to be 2 times per season. Once in week 11, and the other one is the last week before the draft, which is like offseason stage 3 or 4, or something like that, where you can choose 3 players to unlock additional percentages of their scouting report. So you always choose, you don't delegate, because that's not a good thing to do. But you can choose any player you want. So now, because I did the tier 3 quarterback, we already know what the talent level is for some of these players. So for these quarterbacks, we know that, they're not fully where they should be. None of these top 5 guys have top 5 talent. Now that doesn't mean they're not going to be great players. That could just be because they are, quarterbacks, and they generally come in at a lower overall than some other players. It doesn't speak to their development trait at all. So just because this guy is listed as a round 1 to 2 instead of top 5, he still might have an X factor development trait, which would make him one of the best prospects to get at quarterback. But anyway, if I wanted to find out more about Kirk Allman, I can click on him. It'll put a little check mark, and you can see up in the top left now it says 1 of 3 players chosen. And I can just go down the list and I can do that. And let's do, let's do that, the linebacker they told us to do, huh? Where is he? Where is Eddie Edens, or whatever the hell his name was? So there, we went and did Eli Edens as well. Once you have your 3 chosen, you want to make sure you hit triangle where it says confirm, and then hit yes for those 3 players. And then each week, one of them will have, I think it's 30% unlocked. Well, we'll find out. Let's just go ahead and advance and find out, because that was the last one to worry about. Yes, it's 30%, and then the last one is like, I think the last one's 40% or something. So you can actually get a lot unlocked on the second set. But either way, you can still get a lot of stuff unlocked. And now how it works is once they have a higher percentage scouted, These skills here, you have less of them that are arranged, or you have a tighter range and you have more solid letter grades. So now we know that this dude's got a lot of A's. He might be worth drafting for us at the right tackle position if we need one. And it does this in chunks. So the first week is the first player you chose, the second week's the second, and the third is the third. Now the second time around, it does all three immediately after advance. But the first one, it goes in stages. And then of course, once you get to farther in the season, you'll have this view playoff picture that appears, and you can just see what the current layout is if the playoffs started today and what the seeding would be. So as of right now, we're not making the playoffs. And then also during your bye week, now this will be, of course, whenever your bye week is, you have an option to choose to upgrade stuff on your team. It'll bring you here and it'll say team bonding retreat, stay grinding, or self-scouting. And you have plus to morale, which can raise your attributes on your players, but it's also going to take away their awareness for the week. And then you also have extra XP, but it's going to take away their stamina, extra awareness, but it's going to take away their stamina. So I usually go stay grinding because I usually don't run progressive fatigue, so the fatigue thing won't matter to me too much. And then you just simulate through here and you see that everybody got an extra 500 XP and they all got -7 stamina for the next game. Once you get to the end of the season, which means when you're done playing, so in this scenario, in this sim, my Vikings did not make the playoffs, so our season ended at wildcard week. It's going to have your upgrade players for anybody left over that you didn't upgrade yet, and this is where your practice squad players can also populate if they earn stuff, which normally they all at least get 1 upgrade, sometimes 2 upgrades on your practice squad. This is where I usually just auto upgrade all because I don't feel like going through them all. And then once you get to the Pro Bowl week, you can see the Pro Bowl roster, which is just sort of cool because if you have players that make the Pro Bowl, they will get extra XP and potentially earn a dev upgrade just because of that. This is something I should have explained a long time ago, but I forgot to. So I always talk about development trait or dev trait or something like that. You've probably heard me say that 100 times already in this video or in other videos. And what I mean by that is that right there where it says Superstar X Factor. And you can have a player that has that. You can have a player that's at star, and you can have one at normal. Now this determines how much XP they need to upgrade to get an upgrade skill point. So the higher the development trait, the more likely they are to earn faster upgrades to become a better overall player. This also takes into account their age, right? So their age plays an important factor. The older they are, the harder it is for them to upgrade. And those, of course, are all settings you can do as well. I could talk for an hour about all those upgrades and stuff that you can do in the sliders menu. I would highly recommend looking up slider videos, the in-depth stuff, to learn more about that. That stuff more is very complex and stuff that you probably won't mess with for your first run through in a franchise. So that's why I didn't talk about it. But if you're really interested in more sliders, look up Madden 24 sliders and look for a video that explains how they work and what to do with them. And that will help you in the long run. But this one will make this video for like 2-3 hours long, and we just can't do that. But as I was saying, if you have a player that made it to the Pro Bowl, even though your team maybe didn't do so well, they have a chance to get better. They could earn more XP to get them to an upgrade point, or they could even increase their development trait by getting to this game. So we have a few players. I saw CJ Ham, I see Justin Jefferson. So I always take a look at this stuff also just to sort of know what's going on around the league too. Like I like knowing stuff about the teams I'm playing against, so it sort of helps me become more immersed in the whole experience. And then once you get to the final game or the off season, it's going to show you the yearly awards. And now this is who is the winner of these yearly awards. This can also be accessed through the stats page on the league tab. But this is just a sort of a shortcut it gives you, and it just tells you who won. So we know Dak Prescott was MVP, Mike McCarthy, Coach of the Year, Josh Jacobs, Offensive Player of the Year for the AFC, CeeDee Lamb, Offensive Player for the NFC. And also there's a bug going around right now. So apparently every Cowboy wins every year, no matter what the position is almost. So if you want to mess with that, you sort of have to have a profile on it so that they can't screw the system. It's weird. It's Madden. It's just what we deal with. All right, so we've made it through a season, and now it's time for the off season. And this is where, of course, your team starts to form. This is where you can put your sprinkle on the team. This is where you can make the changes you want and find new players and do all the fun stuff. I love this stuff. Anyway, maybe you don't, maybe you just like playing games. I love building the team. So anyway, we're in off-season staff week. Now this is where the CPU automatically rolls every single coaching fire and hire throughout the entire league. And it's also your spot to adjust your staff. Now you do want to check, because sometimes your staff can get poached by other teams if you have a good season. So we were safe because we sucked, nobody left. But now you see we have all those points up there. I can go in here and I can spend them all. You can do this anytime you want. I just been simming to just sort of get through it and show you guys this, but you just go here and you can click on stuff to upgrade it. And of course, like I said in the beginning, just make sure you're paying attention to what you're upgrading. So that way you know what you're getting every time you are doing this, because if you choose the wrong one, it's a pain in the butt to have to go backwards. You also are going to see the retirements tab. So if you click here, this is going to bring you to the transactions log and filter it down to retired players. And you can see everybody in the league that retired. You can see that we lost Harrison Smith. He decided to hang it up after 12 years. I love looking at this too. Now I know how different my franchise is going to be, how my NFL league is going to be. So this is something that I'm always looking at. Adam Thielen decided to retire. So you can see when the big names leave, and it also sort of helps you know where you can expect some of these teams to go in free agency and in the draft now that they might have lost some of their key players. This is also the time where you will see if any of your players change their development trait. So if they got better or worse throughout the season. I don't remember who had certain traits before I started. I forgot to check that. But of course you'll probably know. You'll be able to tell, like, oh crap, this guy used to be blue, or this guy used to be, you know, silver or gold, and now he's gray. Dang, he must have dropped in his development. And if you're not sure, you can always click on a player that you're not sure of. So let's say we weren't sure if Lewis Seen dropped. And if you go over to progression history, it'll have it rated here in their wildcard playoff week if they had a development upgrade or decrease. It'll say like plus, you know, star dev or minus star dev if they change what their development trait is. And then here's that staff moves that I told you about. At the end of the year, you can just see any move that was made for all of the teams around you. Now you're in the second offseason stage, which is re-sign players area. This is the final week you can re-sign any players you have not already agreed to a contract with. If you do not get them to sign here, they will go into free agency, and then you have to, of course, bid against them with other teams. This is also where if you have any players that are a first-round pick, if they're going in their fifth year, if you can pick up their fifth-year option. Every first-round pick has the option for a fifth year that you can accept or decline. If you just don't do anything, it's going to decline it, which means their contract is now only 4 years instead of 5. So I, of course, with Christian Darrisaw, I'm definitely going to accept that. I'm going to hit yes. There we go. That is taken care of. And then any other players that you want, you have to sign now. So Dalton Reisner here, if I want to bring him back, I previously submitted him one, but he didn't like it. So what I'm going to do is maybe I'll raise the salary up and the bonus up a little bit and see if he takes that. And he does. So there we go. Now, if I decide to lowball a player like KJ Osborne here, whose interest level is already low, he's going to say, I think free agents will be better for me. And now you cannot re-sign him. Now, if he's a good enough player and you really want to keep him, you can franchise tag him. The only thing here, though, is the franchise tag is super expensive. It takes the average salary of the top 10 players at his position. So even though he's a 77, I would have to give him almost $23 million to franchise tag him. And you have to decide, is it worth it for that one extra year to negotiate? Or do I want to let him hit free agency and see if I can get him back that way, or find a different player altogether? And once you are past the re-signing area, this is off-season free agency stage 1. This is also where the combine results on the player prospects will unlock. So if you click here, it's going to bring you to the prospects page. You can see what you have unlocked for certain players now. Like here's Caleb Bass. We did the earlier focus player on him, so we unlocked the extra 30%. But if you click into one of these guys, you can now see their first rating here, their NFL combine numbers. You can see what their numbers are. I generally don't look at the numbers themselves. I look at the placement on the left. So 7th quarterback in 40-yard dash, a 10th in bench press. Once you get him unlocked enough, it'll unlock their ratings fully. So now you know he has elite throw power, but his speed is only decent. So he's not gonna be the best, he's not gonna be the worst. And now all of these are unlocked and we know what he is from a grading standpoint. And this is also where you, of course, sign free agents. So if you click into here, it's gonna tell you to view available free agents and it'll bring you to this screen. And at the top, it's got all players available, targeted, my signings, signed, and so on. Again, I've done a few of these tip videos, so I don't want to keep telling you guys to go watch a different video. Well, I do, because that helps my YouTube stuff out. But in terms of just trying to help you, I don't want to have to keep doing this, but there's so much to dive into with this stuff for like strategy and what to look for. I did a free agency video last Madden and it correlates with this one. It's the same stuff. So go back to my Madden 23 tips list, find the one about free agency, watch that one. It'll explain this in a lot more detail. I'm just going to show you some very basic stuff here. So this, very simple. Who's available? You can see their interest level. You can sort by interest. So maybe you only want to target people who want to play for you. You can sort by age, of course, and of course overall. This is only going to show you the top 100 you can cycle through by position. And now the active negotiations and eval period that you see up there. Active negotiations. Remember, we set this in the beginning on the settings. You can only do 5. So every team is capped to 5 offers they can make to a player before you either hit the eval, which essentially just sims their decision, or sim the entire week, and then you can redo it again. So if I wanted to offer 5 players, I could do that, hit eval period again. Right there, it says L3 eval offers. I get that 3 times. So essentially, if you wanted to, you could get 3 eval periods, which is 15 players before you even hit stage 2 of free agency. And it essentially just forces the players that have a contract offer to weigh their decisions and allows other teams to offer, right? So use that wisely, use it at your will. I really want to sign Tony Pollard, so I'm going to go in here, and it's the same screen you get for re-signing a player. I'm going to hit make offer, and you can see where your offer strength is. Mine is not very great. It's a yellow offer, and then once you look at it, you'll see that I'm the only team offering, but it's not a great offer. So I could get him for a steal, or I could re-roll, and he'll end up, you know, getting 4 other offers, and now I'm stuck competing with these other teams. So now once I have a couple of players, see the active negotiations is now at 2. It'll always have that little arrow thing on the far left, and that'll indicate that you have an offer on that player. You can also scroll over to available. Now this will take away all players that have been signed. So any player that has been signed by any team will not be here. You can go down to targeted, so it'll only show the players you have targeted currently. My signings, obviously it'll show your signings, and then sign, this will be every single player that has been signed so far in free agency. So now if I hit eval, which is L3, this screen will pop up, contracts reviewed. Hit OK, and now you can see that some players have already signed. And you can see here that now the Lions are pushing in on my offer to Tony Pollard because my offer was not strong enough. Same here with DJ Chark. I have a good offer in, but he's still not sure. He's waiting it out. Some players will do this. Some players will sign right away. And then if I go to signed, you can see every player that has been signed so far that is no longer available. And then I can go to available, and it'll only show me the players that I am able to sign myself right now. And now again, you can do that 3 times on the eval periods. I did it 1 time, and then you can still sim it. You have 2 more stages to do that at. Now, once you get past like the first few of them, you usually have your team set. You don't need to worry about it too much, but if you want to draw it out and really think about it a lot, you can do that, and you can make it more of a bigger deal. I like to do that because I'm just weird like that, but somebody might not be, you know, so each their own. In free agency stage 2, you will have the pro day results unlocked. And if you remember when we looked at the card of a player before, it had only the NFL Combine. Now you have that and the college pro day unlocked, and you can sort of weigh the 2 of them to see if there's any discrepancies, any differences, and it just generally gives you a better idea of what their physicals are. Now, their scouted is not going to fully unlock until you have it at 100%, of course, and that's when the talent gets unlocked. So that's why it's so important to really be careful with who you're choosing for scouts and where you set them up, because look at, we only did 1 tier 3 and it was quarterbacks. Those are the only guys we have 100% on. So those are the only ones we know the full talent grade for. Now, of course, you can still find good players without having their talent grade for you, but it does make it more difficult. So you went through all 3 phases of the free agency periods, and now you are in the final stage before the draft, the off-season free agency recap. You can no longer sign free agency. You can look at the signed area to see who is all still available or who is all signed by teams. But the biggest part here is the private workout. I mentioned earlier in week 11, when you chose those 3 focus players, you had 3 more players you could choose. And this is where you do it. This is where you get 40% unlocked. So if you choose here, hit private workouts, you can choose 3 more players. So if you want to choose a player like Caleb Bass, who we have 80% completed on, I know now that I'll get to 100% on him. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to choose him. I'm going to go down here and maybe I want to choose Tyrell Pritchett because I know I won't unlock him fully, but I want to know what he'll be at when we do go to the draft. So I'm going to choose him. This guy, Josh Greco, is 75, so we'll do him. Once you have your 3 chosen, you go here, hit confirm, yes. This is also your last chance to just look at the board as a whole and decide if you want to add anybody to your favorites list. So if you go here, you can just hit triangle, it'll add them to your favorites. And now if you go to your favorites, he's there. And you can also, like if I add a bunch of players to it, like this, I can go here and I can be like, you know what? Yeah, Joey Newby is the top rated prospect, but I really think that this is the order it should be in my mind of area of importance. And you can organize it like that. And now you can use this throughout the draft. You can't edit it while you're drafting, which is completely stupid and used to be in the game up until last year. No clue why they took it out. Sorry, it's just really frustrating. But anyway, you can't edit it once you're in the draft, but you can edit it up until this week. This is also when the final mock draft will come out. So if you go in here, you'll see where all the teams are going to pick. And you know, oh wow, Caleb Bass is listed as the #1 prospect. Oh geez. And like I told you guys before, this is essentially what is going to happen, right? This is what's going to happen. It doesn't matter what you do or say. This is the order that's going to go in. And we know that, hey, that Joey Newby guy, he'll fall to us if we're here. So we're at pick 5. We might be able to get Joey Newby. And then once you get to the final week, this is where you can scout the college players still, and you can see what the stuff that is that you unlocked. So we unlocked, who was it that we unlocked? Crap. Caleb Bass. Remember, we unlocked him. So now he's up to 100%. We know he is round 1 to 2 talent. So not a full round 1 talent. Probably would be better off not to take him 1 overall. We know that. The other team probably doesn't. We also did Tyrell Pritchett. Now he's up to a 90%. So we don't have him fully unlocked. But now when you look at the skills, you can see that almost all of his grades are unlocked. The only ones that aren't are stamina, kick return, and awareness. Everything else has been unlocked for us, and we know he's probably a pretty good prospect. And then this is really all you do. There's a lot of information here. If you really want to go hardcore into this drafting stuff, you're going to be looking at this nonstop. You're going to be adjusting it week to week. You might see a story that makes you think, hey, I really want to draft this guy. There's a lot of stuff to look at. Also, make sure that you're paying attention to this news area throughout the season because they will just randomly drop in little tidbits about the players. Let's see if I can find one. I can't. They're very weird about populating this stuff. Once in a while, you'll get a bunch of stories. Other times, you won't get any stories. But you will see little stories like so-and-so kicked off team or so-and-so wins best running back of the year in college football, and it'd be like, hey, maybe I should draft this guy now because he had a good storyline. Maybe that means he's better or he's a secret sleeper. But then once you're done with everything and you're ready to do the final part of the offseason drafting, you just go down here, you hit start the NFL draft, and that is when it's going to bring you to this screen here, and you will no longer be able to do anything else except draft. Now I have it turned off on the timer, so it's not going to do anything, and all I can do is just skip ahead. This is how I usually do it. I'm not doing the whole draft. I'm just going to go up until our pick and show you how close it is to the mock draft itself. So remember, Bass was going 1 overall, and he goes 1 overall. The mock draft follows things to a T up until like the end of the first round, I think. Boom. We know who's getting chosen. There we go. And we know now that we can make a, and now on this screen here, once you're up to pick, now this is a lot of the same stuff, but you'll see trade away pick is up here. You can still manage staff, manage roster. If you want to make a last minute trade, you can do that through the trade center still here. You don't have to do it this way. If a team wants to offer you picks for your pick, this will pop up, trade away pick. And if you click here and hit review offer, it will show you all of the teams willing to give you picks just for that first round pick. So the Titans, they want to move up from 21. They're only willing to give us a second, a fifth, and a seventh. No, thank you. The Ravens, they want to give us 2 firsts and a third. That's decent. Raiders, 1 second. The Niners, they want to give us 2 firsts, a third, fourth, and a seventh. And you can just go through, and if you want to take one of these, immediately just hit select, and you can take the trade, and then that's it. The picks swap, and you are no longer on the board. If you want to trade up with a team, you do have to go to the trade center and do it manually. There is no option to just go up there and do it. But a little tip, sort of how I showed you with the get offers for your players, you can do the same for other teams. So if you know that the Bears are picking next here, and you're like, I really want that pick. If you just go here and hit get offers, the Bears will give you packages that they will accept for their draft pick. And you don't have to do any of the work. You can just say, okay, I'm okay with it, right? So you can look through and be like, you know what? I don't mind giving up a second this year, a first next year, a third, and a sixth in future years. Click on it, boom, now you have a second first round pick. So use that to your advantage. And now, of course, to make your selection, you hit make selection, pick player. You can also choose to simulate. I would highly suggest not doing that. And this one is tough because we know that Josh Newby is a top 5 talent or a top 5 projection. But when you look at some of these other guys, like look at Chris Studebaker, we know he is round 1 projection. So anywhere from top 6 to like, I think 20th pick range is where he should be taken based off his talent. We know he's got elite throw power, and we know all of his skills are unlocked. He's got a lot of A's, We might want to take him instead of Joey Newby up here because we don't know what Joey Newby is fully. We know he's a year younger, but we know his throw power isn't as good. And look at how much more muddier this looks than what we know of Studebaker. So we know his short accuracy is better. His medium accuracy is worse. His deep accuracy is the same. But you know, it's what do we want to go with? So I am still going to go with Chris Studebaker in this scenario because I feel more comfortable taking him. Everybody's going to have their own decisions that they have to make. So then once you're comfortable with your decision, it's only thing you can click is already picked. Draft player, you just hit X, and there you go. You don't know all of his ratings. So we know we only got a normal dev player, so that wasn't very good. But we know what his throw power is. We know what his speed is. We know quite a bit about him now. After the pick, I just sim the rest of the draft because it's really not important to show you guys every pick. But I wanted to show you this last part. Once you finish the draft, you're in this little weird in-between stage where you're not in off-season and you're also not in preseason yet. But this is the last step before you go to the next season. And then you can actually recap the entire draft. You can click here, view contract details, and it'll show you every player picked for every team. And you can just sort of look. And I love looking at this to see where I messed up and where I got a steal, right? So let's go down the list here. We know I took Studebaker at 5th overall. There's Pritchett, the corner I did. He was a 75 as well. We needed a corner, and he was hidden dev. So maybe I made a mistake. I don't think I did because we really needed a quarterback. But it's just cool to be able to see some of the other players you could have drafted, where they ended up going, and what you could have had for them. Once you're done with that, it's time to just advance week, and then you go right back to the preseason week 1, and that is what she wrote. So that is everything I had. I know this was a long video, guys. I don't know how to make short tip videos. I just talk too much, or maybe I explain things in too much detail. I don't know, but I can't make a 15-minute video. I just can't do it. I don't know. So I hope you guys stuck around to watch it. I hope this also helps you guys who are just starting to play franchise, or maybe have never played franchise before. Feel comfortable getting into it, and hopefully you guys can come back and like, hey, what did he say about doing this? Or what was that week that I have to make sure that I have to stop in to do something? And hopefully you guys get something out of this. If you did, consider leaving a like down below, hitting that subscribe button if this is the first video that you found of me, or you just been watching and you haven't subscribed yet. And then, of course, if you really like what you're seeing and you want to see more of me, hit that bell so that you're notified when I upload more content. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.